Greetings shippers, welcome back, and it's time to take a look at an event that has occurred within fandom that poses a lot of questions about fan and creator interaction and about whether or not Twitter is a public or private space, especially when one is representing a company. We're going to be taking a look at an exchange that happened between the current Venom writer at the time of this recording, Donny Cates, and some members of the Symbrock fandom, as well as just some general members of the comic fandom as well. It must be stated that this video is not to bash anybody or send any hate anybody's way. It is simply an examination of not only the situation, but also the state of fandom interaction, and how people feel about it, and what is deemed to be appropriate and not appropriate. It's a very fascinating exchange, and not the only one of its ilk. Exchanges like this are popping up more and more across a variety of fandoms and mediums, and they are starting to have larger ripple effects, or at least ripple effects that are easier to follow. So, before we get started, if you haven't already, please do follow on social media to stay up to date, know when we're streaming, and just come on over and chit-chat about fandom. It's a good time, I swear. Now, there's a decent amount to chat about, so let's get started. For all of this to make sense, we need to go back to October of 2018, wherein the Venom film was released, and it was released to widespread audience acclaim, if not critical acclaim. Critically, the film did very poorly, with people citing its many plot holes, editing choices, and tonal shifts as reasons that the film was not very good. However, amongst audiences, there was a great deal of enjoyment. Some people felt that the flaws of the film were being overblown, and that critics had simply seen too many films and didn't know how to have a good time anymore, and that Venom was offering something different than the other superhero films that had been coming out at that time. While others felt that, yes, there were many critiques that were valid surrounding this film, but at the same time, there was a lot to enjoy too. And that at the end of the day, really what it was a popcorn movie. A movie that's just meant to be enjoyed with one's brain shut off, and really there's not much more to it. Mileage, of course, varied. One thing that most people seemed to get out of this film was Symbrock, that being the pairing of Eddie and the symbiote, the aforementioned and titular Venom. This was latched onto by fans of the film as well as by the media, who began to play upon that angle, citing that Venom was perhaps a romantic comedy and acknowledging that that was what a lot of fans of the film had enjoyed, jokingly or more seriously. And the ship very much took off. For those who are unaware, shipping is the process by in which two fictional characters are paired together. This can be canonically, as in a couple that is actually together within the piece of media, or it can be non-canonical, that being characters that fans wish were together or feel had chemistry that was not fully explored. This can also extend into real person shipping, in some ways that are more socially acceptable and others that are a bit more controversial. Shipping can lead to a wide array of transformative works. It depends upon one's level. Some ship casually and simply acknowledge that a pairing would be cute, while others produce actual works, this being fan art, fan fiction, theories, a whole host of things, and these can have different goals. For some, it's simply about entertainment and finding ways to enjoy and connect with the text past its completion. In short, these people enjoyed the material so much that they want to continue to enjoy it in any way possible. While there are others who hope for a more canonical basis, that being that maybe, just maybe, somehow their ship could actually become canon. This is especially the case wherein the work that is being pulled from is a series of some kind, so there is the potential, or at least some feel there may be the potential that it could actually happen. For those who are within it, it is easy to forget that shipping is a subset of fandom, and fandom is already a subset. Over time, there are aspects of fan culture that have become more accepted in the mainstream. However, shipping, by and large, is not one of them. Every now and again, a ship will burst forth and be discussed in a positive manner, but for the most part, shipping is relegated to the realm of the odd or the obsessive. Ships will be brought up to make fun of such fans, or to demonstrate how fandom goes too far. In fact, even inside of fandom itself, shipping is not always accepted, for fandom is in no way a monolith. As a result, many shippers are afraid to discuss that they actually do ship in public, or also to bring up their ships or hopes or questions about them to creators, because they fear that there will be backlash. This has begun to ease depending upon the con setting, but still doesn't always yield optimal results. However, on the online sphere, this is slowly changing. While mainstream media tends not to discuss this, because of the rise of social media and the ease of access to creators, the boundaries have been breaking down for years, and people will now begin to ask questions directly to writers, actors, cast and crew, and not always in a con setting. Mileage on this varies. For some, it very much depends upon the tone of how the question is asked, and for others, they feel that they should never be asked at all, while other fans feel that this, like other aspects of fandom, deserves to be discussed and have its time in the sun, and that problems only arise when a select few go too far, a case of bad apples spoiling the whole bunch. All of this is to say, there are many opinions about what is going on in fandom, and a lot of it can be contentious, and also to point out that shipping is often often misunderstood, and there are many who do not take the time to look into it or explore it, as they feel that it is beneath them. Or they may have unfortunately only encountered the negative effects, and that they are better fans for not engaging in it. For fandom has a lot of gatekeeping that goes on within it on various tiers and levels, from people not knowing enough information, to not being the right sort of fan, to not having the right materials for their costumes. There's just a lot that goes on. Fandom can be fundom, but people truly do need to work to keep it that way. So with all of that in mind, let's get to what happened with Donny Cates, Venom, and Symbrock. After the release and success of the Venom film, there were some who went back to look into the comics run, for Venom has had a comic series on and off for decades. In 2016, Venom had started quite a successful run, and one aspect of that run of note was that the relationship between Eddie and the symbiote had very romantic overtones. In fact, the writer at that time had stated that it was indeed a romance. This coming from then writer Mike Costa. This quote can be found in issue number 165 in the Eddie's Clubhouse section in the last few pages. There have been a lot of superhero romances in the Marvel Universe. Peter and Gwen, Scott and Jean, Matt Murdock, and everyone, but there is only one superhero story that is a romance, and that's Venom. However, it must be noted in comics that canon is ever changing, and that the same author does not complete a series run. Not usually. Sometimes an author is on a comic from start to finish. However, most times what occurs is that authors will swap in and out, and so comics can be defined by author runs. You can even collect omnibuses in this fashion. So a character and then the author's run on that book, and each run tends to be different. Whenever a new author takes over a book, it is rare for them to keep everything the same. Most authors want to put their own stamp on the book and also have their own views about how the story and characters are going to evolve, which depending upon a variety of factors, they will either be able to execute to completion or not. Everybody can get different reads on a character, just like within fandom, and this plays out when a new author takes on a new run. As a result, when Donny Cates took over the Venom run, he had a different vision for the relationship between Eddie and the symbiote. Namely, that they are not together. Now, there's a lot of positive buzz about Cates' Venom run. A lot of people really enjoy it. Although, as always, if one is interested in a comic, it is best to pick it up for oneself and check it out, as especially at the time of this recording, many comic reviews are skewed one way or the other. So as always, if you have the inclination and the resources, check it out. However, there are some who are disappointed that that element of the relationship between the two characters is no longer front and center, as it was something they enjoyed, even if only conceptually. While shipping is definitely still possible with this run, some mourn the loss of the canonicity and the focus on it. Also, new fans coming into the series who were not caught up were excited when they first learned that the relationship was canon, only to discover that essentially it no longer was. Especially as some of these fans are new to comics or just jumping on and are not familiar with how these runs work and how things change so quickly within comic canon. Something that even comic fans have their problems with. And there were some disappointed comic shippers as well, as the movie had galvanized this pairing in a whole new way, and they were excited to showcase the canonicity of it to incoming fans. Now, depending upon the author or creator, there can be a contention between them and the fan base, especially if they feel that the fan base is entitled. There are many discussions ongoing as to whether or not fans co-own characters. Now, there are some who feel that this is a very toxic mindset and that it makes fans become very entitled and aggressive. However, there are others who feel that some take that sentiment a bit too at face value, and that co-own doesn't mean literally, but simply that fans do have input and that their views should at least be acknowledged, because it is ultimately fans who keep a franchise going. Though some feel that when fans misbehave, they waive that right, which brings up interesting discussions about what exactly is going too far, and how can one separate and categorize fans, and should they be doing so? On top of all of this, it must be acknowledged that it is impossible to please all fans all the time, and so one has to gauge how big of a part a certain subset of fans is, whether they want to listen to them or whether they want to keep doing their own thing, and if they're going to keep doing their own thing, how forcefully they want to state that. And on the flip side, there are those who feel that fans need to acknowledge that creators have the right to express themselves and say what they will and won't do, and to tell the story they so choose. So, with all of that out of the way, let's get to the exchange. On December 27th of 2018, after being prompted about whether or not people ask him about Symbrock in public, Donny Cates had this to say. Symbrock is a ship between Eddie and the symbiote, and many of these shippers hate my run because Eddie and the symbiote aren't represented as being in a romantic or sexual relationship. And haha, no, none of them would would ever say it to my face. It's easy to be brave on Tumblr. Shouldn't you want to write something that other fans will enjoy as well, though? I mean, of course you should write for yourself to enjoy it, but if the story changes characterization that at this point is beloved by most fans, isn't that more harmful than helpful? Are you under the impression that people are not enjoying my Venom run? I'm speaking for others who are not enjoying it, and who have specific reasons and worries about it. I'm being polite, sir, and just bringing up issues others have spoken of. Well, that's fair, and I appreciate your politeness. Here's the thing, I'm not going to change my Venom plan. That's not me attacking you guys or disrespecting you. I've been hired to do a job, and my employer is very happy with the job I'm doing. I'm having fun. I'm sorry you aren't. This was one of the more minor of the exchanges. There were some that were a bit more vehement, wherein certain fans had a bit of a harsher tone, and Cates gave as good as he got. At Don Cates, seriously, when is your run over? When can we give Venom back to someone who doesn't suck again? Or is at least not so far out of touch with the character that Clintar would be closer than his own head up his ass? Worry not, I'm here for a long time. Glad you're enjoying the run so much. It must be noted that even before Cates replied, there were many who chastised the fans who were being harsh, stating that this was not the way to ask questions or talk to the writer of a book. It must also be noted that not all who dislike this run are Symbrock shippers. There was also quite the exchange with one at Lilac Shark, however that one was very long, and we've already read enough of these tweets for you to get the gist. Cates would ultimately apologize the following day after the incident blew up. However, on that day, the exchanges end with this tweet on his Twitter. I don't have a single problem with the Symbrock fandom, none whatsoever. I have a problem with people being absolutely horrendous to me on here and going out of their way to tell me I suck at my job. I mean, I might suck, but that's just poor manners, guys. Now, it must be noted that the overall tone of these tweets is not too bad in the grand scheme of things. There have been much worse Twitter exchanges, sadly. However, this exchange prompted a lot of questions, not just about what was said, but about the fallout, and also about whether it needed to happen in the first place. There are some who wonder whether or not people had been seeking out Donny Cates and telling him that his run was bad. For if that was not the case, then why bring up Tumblr specifically? Is this an instance wherein a creator has been looking at what people have been saying about them? And if that is so, is that something that creators should do? And if they do it, is it something that they should discuss? Others posit, based on the state of fandom at the time of this recording, that there must have been harassment, evidenced by what could be readily seen on Twitter. Do you think that there is no ill will felt towards Symbrock shippers, or do you feel that that statement is damage control and disingenuous? Also because of this, one saw that amongst fans who were not fans of shipping or do not know about it or understand it, there was a lot of hate sent the shippers' way. In fact, Hayes had to come out and make statements asking his followers not to harass one of the people he had had one of the more intense discussions with. I wanted to very quickly implore all of you to please stop sending hateful tweets and messages to @LilacShark. We had a disagreement and that's perfectly okay, but let's try to calm down. No one should be harassed because of this. For my part in this, I apologize if I let my emotions get the better of me. It's hard sometimes to hear negative things about something you've worked so hard on, but that's no excuse for using my platform to shame someone or make them feel bullied or ganged up on. This can be a stark reminder that the labels of creator and fan still have much impact and that there can be a power hierarchy in play, which also raises the question of using one's social media and how one has to use it if they are a creator. Some feel that creators need to make separate accounts, a business account and a personal account. Personal account being where they can discuss their own opinions and the business account being where they talk about their work, as some feel that the two being meshed together has not yielded good results. There are many who feel that the standards of professionalism have just been slipping, and people need to return to an era where they are mindful that if they put their profession front and center, then they are representative of that profession. And that Twitter is not really as private a space as people tend to think it is, especially in this day and age where people are looking to Twitter for a variety of reasons, not all of them the most positive. As a result, some feel that this exchange should never have occurred, and that the statements made were not appropriate, while others feel that they are entirely appropriate and that creators are damned if they do and damned if they don't. For fans want interaction, but at the same time, if the interaction does not exactly live up to their expectations, then things can go awry. On the flip side, in recent years, there have been some truly atrocious fan interactions, wherein creators have actively attacked their own fan bases. What do you think? How do you feel about the exchange? Others simply felt a little salty about the belittling of the size of Symbrock, specifically in the tweet where it mentions 6 people on Tumblr. It must be noted that not all Symbrock shippers have transferred to the comics or are clamoring for the ship to actually be represented therein. However, there are many more Symbrock shippers than simply 6 people on Tumblr. Again, the ship is spread across a variety of fandom platforms that exceed Tumblr, taking firm root in fiction and art sites. And on Tumblr itself, it managed to become the 14th ship of 2018 for the entire year, despite debuting essentially in October of 2018. 2018. So there are people who have very strong feelings about this ship. Also, for many of these people, they tend to feel bullied and belittled in the first place, as there is so much mockery and judgment about shipping, especially with a ship that some would deem odd, as a ship such as Symbrock falls for many under the umbrella of tetrophilia, or more colloquially known as monster which is already a hard sell to people who don't understand shipping in the first place. Aside from all of these discussions, another interesting one that occurred was that Donny Cates ended up actually having to make a statement about Comicsgate because of this, as based on what he said, as well as the somewhat disparaging comments indirectly sent towards Tumblr, certain fans made that assumption. Tumblr has become known as a predominantly female and queer space, hence some extrapolate that one saying something negative about it means that they are against those things. There is a lot going on in comic fandom right now. Too much to get into in this video. All in all, many have come out of this feeling that it was an unfair situation for all concerned. Namely that Cates didn't mean anything bad by what he was saying, but was simply defending his run, and being proud of what he is currently creating. And two, that shippers were simply attempting to have a conversation, one that they didn't even start, as it was not as though they had been the ones who had sought out and started this exchange, but once it began on Twitter in a space where it could be seen, some of them responded. As mentioned, exchanges like this are becoming more and more commonplace, and they are having ripple effects on fandom and the industry. Exchanges such as these definitely impact how fans approach things, and the fallout can impact how they view a material and also whether or not they're going to buy it or engage with it. And also, it can open up creators or other people on Twitter to some of the more dangerous and vitriolic members of society, who may be willing to go through their entire archives to dox, harass, or worse. On the more minor side of things, this can just lead to a general bitterness on the creator's part, and an unwillingness to interact with fans, or to bend the knee to any fan demands, sometimes subconsciously. Exchanges like this are very fascinating to me, especially in the evolving discourse about how creators and fans should interact. The author-fan divide is especially intriguing, particularly in the realm of comic books, for creators are coming on to characters who are oftentimes legacy characters who have been around for years, putting their own spin on a character, which if one thinks about it is very similar to fan fiction. The only difference and aura of legitimacy given is the permission and the fact that they work for the company, especially if one factors in that these creators may be fans themselves. As a result, some wonder if perhaps this is the reason why some of these exchanges can come off more defensive, or if it is simply very difficult to read tone online. Emojis everywhere, or simply little asterisks with emotions after everything. So I have to pass the question off to all of you. Were you aware of this exchange? How did you feel about it? Do you think it was a good thing? A bad thing? Do you think that creators need to be more careful with how they utilize their personal Twitters? Or do you think that people need to start looking at Twitter differently, as a more private space, separate from one's workplace? Or do you think that ship has sailed a long time ago? Or do you believe that this is all the fans' fault, and that fans should really stop addressing creators directly? Also, since Cates asked, are you enjoying the new Venom run if you're reading it? At the time of this recording, there will be a new run at some point. Yes, it is the return of the Venom crop top. In my last video, when I complained about it being a crop top, many of you suggested ways to wear it, such as an under, which, acknowledgement time, yes, that can work, but I must say that that still means that I paid full hoodie price for half a hoodie. Worth it. Thank you as always for taking some time out of your day to spend it discussing fandom with me. I always appreciate it. There are always so many things going on. It's difficult to follow everything, but I love hearing your opinions on the things we do get to discuss. So please share all of them down below. And you know the drill. Numbered if possible. I love a good essay comment. Please also, one final reminder that this is not a bashing space, and if you are a non-shipper here, welcome, and please feel free to tell me why and all of that good stuff down in the comments below. But of course, we can all have discussions respectfully. Different strokes for different folks. There will of course be more videos coming soon, so if you haven't already, please do subscribe, hit that bell notification so that you never miss a vid, and I will see you again when I can. Until then, let's get to the outro. Bye-bye. This has been Shipper's Guide to the Galaxy. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Special thanks to all of my patrons, names on the side, for helping to make these videos possible. There are, as always, more videos coming soon, so until then, stay tuned, for there are as many ships out there as there are stars in the sky.